Good afternoon everyone, it's Debbie Evans here and this is Rollo. He may not stay very long, I'm bribing him with a carrot. But I've been doing a few live videos reading to you from the Secret Adventures of Rolo about this rather special little rescue Jack Russell who I've had now for about 8 years. And I write books about him. Well, actually I write as if I'm him. He's very special because he has the ability to time travel. Oh, he might actually sit here for a moment while I talk about him. Yes, I do love you very much. Yes, I do. So, Rollo came to me from Dogs Trust in Newbury, and this was the sight that greeted me when I went to choose a dog, not knowing what sort of dog I wanted. It's true to say that Rollo actually chose me, not the other way round. And oh, he will now disappear. Anyway, that enables me to talk to you better. So we took Rollo home, and at first he wouldn't settle at night. He howled quite a bit, and after a while he stopped howling after a couple of weeks, and that's when I realised that Rollo actually had a secret. He's discovered a trapdoor underneath my kitchen sink. Now this takes Rollo out into the garden where I'm sitting now, and you would think that's exciting enough for a little dog who's supposed to be in all night, but he doesn't stop in the garden. He squeezes under the gate and finds himself in the middle of a wood. And in the wood, Rollo finds a rather interesting looking tree that has a dragon wrapped around it. And the dragon is called Athelstan, and he is the keeper of a very big secret in the forest. And Athelstan tells Rollo that Rollo is the chosen one because of something Rollo has, which means that he can go inside the tree, and the tree takes him on all sorts of adventures in history. Rollo witnesses all sorts of things from the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, First World War, Second World War. He has all sorts of adventures in secret at night because Athelstan sends him to particular places in time, and sometimes it's actually Rollo that makes things happen. So in the first book, which is this one, Athelstan and the Time Tunnel, Rollo pops up during the English Civil War, and he also finds out about medieval village life. He experiences a fire in the 17th century and actually rescues a cat family. He finds out about something very dear to his heart, biscuits, the history of biscuits, and to do this he needs to time travel back a couple of centuries to Reading, to the Huntley and Palmer biscuit factory. He also experiences the Blitz and helps rescue somebody from a bombed building. He finds out about Marlborough Castle, which used to be a very important castle during the 12th century, and he also has a flight in the Montgolfier brothers' hot air balloon, the very first hot air balloon. In the second book, which is this one, Rollo witnesses the sinking of the Mary Rose. He also meets the Welsh prince, Llewellyn, and changes history a little bit with his interception of the story of Prince Llewellyn and Gellert, the dog that was blamed for something that he possibly didn't do. Rollo finds out about smuggling, or local to Wiltshire it's known as moonraking, and he also witnesses the theft of the World Cup in London in 1966. Rollo also visits ancient Egypt, so he goes back a long way in his time-travelling adventures, finds out about mummification, is rather fascinated by that, and also Rollo is responsible for seeing off the Black Death, so that's very relevant to us here during lockdown. Let me just see if I can find a picture to show you. Here we have Rollo and Chickpea and a rather terrified rodent. Find out all about that in the second book. And also he revisits the Bronze Age and finds out all about the Amesbury Archer, and also an art theft as well. The third book in the series is called The Dragons Pram, And as you can see from the cover, it involves a baby dragon. Well, Rollo is given a very important task by the tree dragon Athelstan and the Welsh dragon Rhydian, the one on the Welsh flag, and he has to hatch something in secret in the airing cupboard without his owners knowing what he's up to. And history adventures in the third book include Magna Carta. Rollo's there when King John is being forced to sign, or actually he had to seal the document that limits his power as king, and you can find out how Rollo was involved in that. He also finds out more about the Iron Age, Henry VIII. He's there during the gunpowder plot. Actually, it's Rollo that stops Guy Fawkes blowing up the Houses of Parliament. He finds out about the 13th horoscope, so a little bit of astrology going on, and also visits a chocolate factory in the 1930s. The fourth book in the series is this one. It's called Jewel Dog and the Dragons. And before I started writing The Secret Adventures of Rolo, I co-wrote a series of books called The Secret Society of Dragon Protectors and discovered a love of dragons. So dragons and other mythical creatures have crept into book 4. Yes, there are unicorns in book 4, and these are being held captive in Silbury Hill, not far from where I live in Marlborough, and it's Rollo to the rescue. Also in book 4, Rollo meets King Alfred of Wessex, finds out about the Saxons and the Vikings, and he travels much further afield to the Middle East, to Dubai, and in the United Arab Emirates, and actually witnesses the founding of the United Arab Emirates in 1971. He meets Sheikh Zayed. Nearer to home, Montgomery Castle, just over the Welsh border. This is a backdrop for some of the adventure that happens in book 4. Rollo's come back, so I'm just going to see if he's going to come back into shot. Come on up here, Rollo. Up, up, up. Little monkey. He's just... you can hear him munching in the background. Rollo also visits ancient Greece and finds out about the Trojan horse. In fact, he inspires the Greeks to build the Trojan horse. They wanted to build a dog on wheels, and Rollo persuades them otherwise. He visits the underworld, meets Hades and Persephone, sorts out a problem for them, and a bit nearer to home, Cardiff, he meets a rather mischievous Cardiff dragon. And then on to book 5, the latest book, the 5th one. This is called Phoenix and the Dragonling, and this came out literally just before lockdown started. And in this one, Rollo visits Hadrian's Wall and has an encounter with some Romans. He also meets some blacksmiths' pets and needs their help to actually make something in the forge, something to do with this rather strange tree on the cover of the book. Rollo meets Florence Nightingale. In fact, it's Rollo that's responsible for finding the owl that Florence Nightingale adopts. And he also goes back to China and meets the first emperor of China. And he is enlisted by the royal family to find a rather wayward corgi that Rollo's met in book 3. This corgi is called Knave, and he's slightly envious of Rollo's time-travelling abilities, and so he wants to have adventures of his own. And so Knave disappears, and Rollo is encouraged to time travel to bring Knave back, because obviously the royal family want their corgi back. So other adventures in the 5th book include, well, something to do with that very strange tree in the forest. He also writes poems and blogs. Throughout all of the books there are blogs, but in book 5 he has poems as well. You can just see his rear end now. Oh, actually, while I've got him in this position, you can see this black spot. This actually appeared during one of his adventures in book 2. Rollo met William Shakespeare, the famous playwright, and Rollo really wanted Shakespeare to write a play about him. Shakespeare wasn't terribly keen on what Rollo was talking about, got so fed up with this little Jack Russell he flung his ink pot across the room and a little bit of ink splashed on Rollo's back, so that's how he got his ink spot. Aside from the adventure stories, Rollo's also brought out a colouring book for younger children, and there are activities in there as well. Join the dots and things like that, word search, spot the difference, and so there's fun to be had colouring pictures of Rollo. So every day at 2 o'clock on Rollo's Facebook page, which is facebook.com rolodogblog, ROLODOGBLOG, I'm reading a random chapter from any of the 5 books, and I'm putting these out live every day during lockdown, especially for those of you who are being homeschooled. And also, after the lives are finished, I'm uploading them to YouTube, so you can find them on YouTube by searching for me, Debi Evans. Whilst I've got him sitting here so beautifully, I think I am actually going to narrate the very beginning of the first book for you, because he's listening nicely. So, from the first book, The Secret Adventures of Rolo, Athelstan and the Time Tunnel, this is about when Rollo came home. The door of the old barn in which we were contained creaked open. It wasn't mealtime. I glanced up and saw a smiling lady and a boy with floppy hair. The other homeless dogs went crazy. Same old routine of barking and jumping up and down every time someone came in. Pick me, pick me. Silly fools, don't they realise the louder they bark, the more they put off prospective owners? I've been round the block a few times, believe me, I know. I stayed very still and quiet in the corner of my pen, gathering my feet together and looking down. This was a very different tactic. The smiley lady seemed close to tears, and the floppy-haired boy was running around from pen to pen, and the other dogs were getting louder and louder, excited at the thought of finding a new home with these kindly-looking strangers. We were all shapes and sizes, ages and colours, but the thing that united us was that we were all pre-loved and pretty desperate. I think I'm going to leave it there because he's getting ever so wriggly, but you'll be able to hear further adventures of Rollo at 2 o'clock this afternoon and every afternoon till lockdown finishes. Thank you very much for listening, and you can see my website in the background, debievans.com. You can find out more about me, about Rollo, about my school visits and WI visits, and hope to hear from you. And if you'd like to read any of the books, they are available to download on Kindle, and you can also buy them directly from me by post, and those can wing their way to you so that you can read Rollo's adventures for yourselves. Thank you very much. Goodbye.